Share, nanti share kan. Tadi dengar yang Profesor Naquib punya ceramah dekat NUS.
Dulu lah dulu.
Zain jumpa. Oh, quite interesting. Sufism. Masa tu siapa yang arrange?
Oh, itu Prof biasa dulu dia selalu have his time out pergi ke Singapore to have his vacation.
Who organised?
Itu Abdullah Uthman.
Abdullah Uthman. Share dalam Bicara Buku. Okey, dah masuk Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And very good afternoon to all of you. Today we are very grateful to be together here to discuss about a book written by distinguished Royal Professor Syed Naquib al-Attas on the intuition of existence. And as usual, Professor Zainiy Uthman will be with us to discuss about this. This is the second time we discuss about this book.
Yep.
And then hopefully this is a good activity for us at the end of the year. We khatam the book by Professor Naquib on the intuition of existence. Before we proceed, I have two announcements. There will be programs organized by Akademi Jawi. As you know, the Akademi Jawi is sponsoring our program all the time. They are doing this broadcasting and at the same time publishing many books that we are discussing. On January 11, Sunday, between 2 to 4 p.m., there will be a session with Emeritus Professor Zaini Ujang at Akademi Jawi. This is about sesi istimewa bicara seni tradisi membaca. This is my new passion about reading and about the traditions of reading among people, and we will just now discuss about the importance of having good libraries, not only good scholars, good books, but also good libraries. And in places like in Turkey, say for example, you'll find big library. At the moment, the biggest library in the world now is in Istanbul, and not only the biggest facilities, but you find that it is full. I visited recently when I was in Turkey for 8 days with my wife. I visited a few libraries. It is amazing the number of people queuing early in the morning to enter library, and they have to use apps in order to get a space in library for a certain period of time. So this is something important for us to discuss. And on top of a book, Membaca, that I've written, this is third edition, but the first edition was 1992. We discuss here, I think this is among the first book we discuss here.
Yeah.
Enlightenment from the Sacred Precinct Manual on the Art of Reading by Al-Mulawi. Yeah? Imam Ahmad Ibn Lutfullah.
Lutfullah al-Malawi.
Al-Malawi, yeah. This is a very old materials available. I mean, the importance of the art of reading is emphasized in Islam. Otherwise, our ulama will not be able to read books as much as we could imagine. So the second point I'm going to discuss also about Bangi. I know that this is a flooding session. Uh, I'm not asking you to read the book. I'm asking you to understand what is in the book. Yeah. So there are 7 types of flooding in Malaysia, but mostly flash flood. 75% of flooding types in Malaysia are in the form of flash floods. Means between 2 to 6 hours. That's called flash flood due to 2 reasons. One, because heavy rainfall. Second, because of the drainage system. So, this is easy to manage. As I mentioned in this book and in my interview in IKIM FM recently, we have to find manhole or saluran air masuk ke longkang. Yeah. This is very important. Make sure that it is open. Make sure that it is not blocked and clogged. And during heavy rain, say for example, if you want to do amal jariah yang baik-baik, you go around with your umbrella, check on this. Make sure the water flowing nicely and accordingly. Yeah, then it will solve the problems of flash flooding. It is very simple. You don't need 1 billion for that. You need only 3 people in that vicinity, in that neighborhood, to ensure that the water flows accordingly. Yeah, so this is, if you want to read detail, you want more detail, you read this book. It's written by my team, so to make sure that it is not done, it is properly done in the country. So with that, I would like to invite Professor Zainiy Uthman to continue your explanation on this book, please.
Okay, thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. Salatu wassalam again, Dato Seri and Datin Seri, thank you for having all of us here at this wonderful house. And although we are in a holiday mood, but I think perhaps the holiday mood is perhaps best filled with some serious contemplation. Continuing on from where we left off, I would like to make it a bit lighter, to backtrack, because the title is very difficult. Remember what I said last time. I think these 3 words, intuition, resistance, can knock anybody off. The word intuition is something we have never heard. It's not being used, isn't it? It's completely absent in any discussion on knowledge presently, even in education, because we never thought that intuition plays a major role in learning and acquisition of knowledge. And this is what Professor al-Attas is trying to bring back, and the primacy of intuition, because it has to go in consonant with the rule, with the role of the qalb, because it also, the role of the qalb has also been relegated, well, somewhere people don't know. Now it's intellect, and we've forgotten, because remember that I mentioned in my book about entitled Al-Attas of Psychology, and Professor al-Attas, that book's basically trying to re-emphasize the emphasis that was made by Prof. al-Attas, that the qalb is very central in our understanding of human nature, because the Quran says so. Nazzalahu ala qalbika. Revelation is deposited, revealed to the qalb of the Prophet. So suddenly, in the 20th century, we are thinking about intellect. The perfection of man is the perfection of the intellect, which is, Aristotelian. And even until today, we have problems, because you have perfection of the intellect, but the behavioral of the students are problematic now. So now we are talking about where to situate these things. And this is why when Professor al-Attas talks about the prolegomena to the metaphysics of Islam, he wants to bring back the central question of metaphysics, which has been missing. It's in any discussion about education, Dato Seri. Because people think that metaphysics is not important.
You said it's Aristotelian when you talk about intellect, means that
yes.
Aristotle does not discuss about other things.
No, he doesn't talk about the qalb, because the qalb for him is not a sense, nor is it a faculty. So that's why people relegated it to maybe like emotion, a reaction to something. So it's not a source of knowledge. I mentioned that in my book, Al-Attas of Psychology, because that's what Aristotle said in his book, clearly. So my point is that I would like to thank Luqman. This morning I asked him to find a PDF copy of Fazlur Rahman's Islam and Modernity, because I remember I read that book, which was published in 1981 by University of Chicago. And in there, in page, I think, 132, he mentioned, in the modern times, there's a lacking of discussion about Islamic metaphysics in order to bring back the discussion about education. Because we have a problem. The problem is our civilization is based on religion, the Madina, the Madani aspect. But nothing of religion becomes central in our education, because religion is pushed away by the secular conception of education. And that's what's missing now. So Professor Rahman was saying, we must bring back this discussion about Islamic metaphysics. And that's why Professor al-Attas wrote in 1995, a prolegomena, an introduction to the metaphysics of Islam. And to bring it back to the central discussion, because unlike Western idea of metaphysics, which is, well, Aristotelian metaphysics talks about being, ontology, and source of knowledge, epistemology, and things like that. But look at the chapters that Professor al-Attas put in the prolegomena to the metaphysics of Islam. Chapter on religion, which means our metaphysics is religion-based. Now that's where the Madani aspect is all about. We are missing that part, Dato. And this is what Professor al-Attas is trying to say. Intuition is no longer very scientific nowadays, because it's not empirical. They say it's very objective, it's personal. Yeah, but Einstein, there's only one Einstein. It's almost like Khabar Ahad in the tradition of Hadith. Why would anyone believe Einstein? But they say they can make the calculation. Yeah, everybody was rallied to make the calculation. It was only a thought experiment. But here, in the idea of experience of existence, I want to show you that, to see, because Professor al-Attas mentioned at the back of this book, at the end of it,
What book?
this book, Intuition of Existence, page 45, the names that are associated, because in science, they say, like as I said, you have Einstein, one person coming up with this idea, and everybody starts working on the calculations and coming up. It's later, isn't it? So look, Professor al-Attas was saying, who subscribed to this idea of what is called Wahdatul Wujud? And I will explain about that later on. Number one, Junaid, then Sarraj, then Hujwiri, then Kushairi, then Ansari, then Ghazali, then Kunyawi, then Razak, Al-Kashani, Qaisari, Abdul Rahman Jami, and then you have Ibn Sina, what have you. So I put a note here just to give you, just get an idea. Junaid, Baghdadi, Iraqi. He lived in the 9th century. The Prophet was 6th century. We're talking about continuity of ideas, 9th century. Sarraj, Tusi, he's 988. 9th century, late, almost 10th century, so he's 10th century. Hujwiri, 11th century, 1072 or 1077 he died. Kushairi, 1072. Abdullah al-Ansari, these are all authors in this field. 1089, 11th century. Al-Ghazali, 1111, 12th century.
1111,
1111. Ibn Arabi, 1240, these are death dates, 13th century. Sadruddin Kunyawi, 1274, 13th century. Abdul Razak Kashani, 1335, which is 14th century. Daud Kaisari, 1350, 14th century. Abdul Rahman Jami, 1492. Now, if you look closely, 1444 he was born. Malacca is what, 8? Now, to give you an idea now. Abdul Karim Jili, the author of Insan al-Kamil, 1425. 1424. This is the 15th century. This is the age of Malacca. But the Terengganu inscription, that you see, 1303, and that is, you go back to maybe Kashani, and the year of Ibn Battuta, isn't it? 1303. My wife was saying to me, Ibn Battuta was born
Maybe.
1304. You see? So Terengganu is even earlier than Ibn Battuta. Terengganu is earlier than Ibn Battuta. The erection, to erect the Terengganu inscription 1 year before Ibn Battuta was born. So that
Before
means,
Ibn Battuta,
and it's 150 years before Istanbul was captured or freed from Constantinople. So we must understand this historical context, which are missing sometimes. Sadruddin Shirazi, Mullah Sadra, 1640. 1640, for some of us, we remember the dates of the Dutch in this part of the world, because the Portuguese fell to the Dutch 1641, I think. That's one thing about our history. We are told to remember the dates Malacca fell. Not the dates Terengganu celebrate. The establishment of Sharia, what have you. So the mentality of the defeated mentality has been ingrained in our education, and it's unfortunate. We have been trained, you were defeated by the Portuguese, you were defeated by the Dutch, you were captured by the British, but never Terengganu, when Maqasid Sharia was erected, never. And a student of mine, one Imran, was saying, why is it that the Terengganu inscription talks about the Syaratan, the zodiac? I said, look, at 1303, that's the peak of the peak of the research and contributions of the Muslim into world astronomy. So they put that in as a far more greater scientific information, because it's mentioned the day, Jum'ah, the month, Rajab, the year, 702. Not only that, the moon is in the constellation of Syaratan. I mean, what crazy person would put the moon in a constellation? Unless you are really a good astronomer, isn't it? Unlike today, you look for feng shui, your house is not facing this way. But those days, they were thinking in the astronomical constellation of things. So in the same way, that we see this discussion about intuition of existence, Professor al-Attas is trying to bring it back into the minds of our thinking group of people, so-called intelligentsia. They used to use the word by his brother, intelligentsia. But nowadays, the word intuition is such a scare word, because it is thought of, this is too philosophical. But I think every person in education, regardless at the Ministry of Education or Ministry of Higher Level of Education, must have constant debate about this. But because you need constant going back, re-examine the ideas of philosophies of education, you cannot talk about only methods of education, because you do not know what you're doing if you keep on following or holding on to the coattail of others, isn't it? This is what Professor al-Attas was saying. We are a different civilization. So why now that our education is so much configured in the realm that we're just following the methods of others? And even look now, the problem of examining students, how to evaluate students, we make such a bifurcation from so-called traditional Islamic training versus what so-called modern. But as I said, we have lots of problems with the modern one. You talk about the intellect, you talk about now the mind, you talk about academic. Now we don't talk about mind, we talk about academic. As if our scholars in the past didn't talk about academic. We how do you say, we narrow the meaning of it. Professor al-Attas, in this book, Dato, Intuition of Existence, is talking about how knowledge goes and change a person. This is what he was talking about at one point. You may find the word a little bit difficult. The word is intussusception. What he means is how the soul absorbs meaning. That Intussusception. Intussusception, if I'm not mistaken. You look in the book, it's there. I forgot which page. The way meaning is absorbed. The reason being, it's like when you take food, it is digested. But the manner, what do you mean by digestion? It means the food is broken down into its so-called elements, you know, and then it is absorbed by the intestine. That process is intussusception. What happens is that it absorbs the real, it didn't absorb the meat. It absorbs the, in Malay, khasiyah. And
Zat makanan.
Zat. Now you go to that because that's the next chapter. The next chapter, he's talking about mahiyah and essence and quiddity and essence. Thank you. So quiddity is mahiyah, the question by Professor Hayati last time, and essence, that. So the body absorbs the essences and the khasiyah. This is what he's talking about. The soul absorbs. What is it that it absorbs? This is what is not being discussed, as you see. And that's why why our traditional practice of memorization works. Although the Westerners don't like. I remember when I came back, people talk about the negative aspects of rote memorization. But you know, anybody who studies physics would know that you have to memorize the formulas. You know. So, okay, we go down the list. Shahruddin Sirazi, Munasadra, 1640. And then 1640 is also the date of Nuruddin Raniri. And 15th century is also the date of Hamzah Fansuri. And then you have Samsuddin Sumatrani in the beginning. This is the continuity of ideas that we don't teach. And even Ustaz Raizi, even our traditional pondok don't talk about this. Because this is the weakness of our tahfiz, our pondok. There seems to be, for some reason, historically disjointed. They learn, the content is good, but when content is lack of context, we have a problem. You cannot know when to apply and how to apply it. See? So this is what Professor al-Attas is trying to bring back, the intuition of existence. And he's bringing it back, Dato, it's not a philosophical or metaphysical contemplation. You know, in this chapter in particular, page 4, he brings the interpretation of Junaid Baghdadi, the one I mentioned earlier, to the verse, Alastu bi Rabbikum. You know? Because I remember, I think some of you may have perused this chapter, and you may have come many parts in this book, in the pages here talks about separation, union, second separation, first separation. It's quite dizzying, to say the speech. It's almost like you've been ping-ponged here and there, here and there. So he was trying to bring about, for example, the idea of first, there is a separation, isn't it? Now, even all scientists today, in order to be objective, you must separate between the object of your study and the subject. You are the subject and the object. So there is a separation. So Professor al-Attas talks about that too. There is a separation. And that is why we are separate from this. Although if scientifically, biologically, we talk about we are hydrocarbons, by material-wise, we are the same like a cow.
Yeah.
But we are separate.
Yeah.
You see? So this is what he's talking about here. We are all, there is first an experience separation. But here's the thing. What does the Quran talks about? The event, which is all now become famous as Yawmul Alastu. As I said last time, when I came back in 1991, I think Professor al-Attas was the first one who talks about Yawmul Alastu, Yawmul Alastu. I never heard of this. But apparently, this is the cornerstone of our religion. You see, we never go into detail about the experience of وَإِذْ أَخَذَ رَبُّكَ مِنْ بَنِي آدَمْ مِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّتَهُمْ فَأَشْهَدَ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ أَلَسْتُ بِرَبِّكُمْ قَالُوا بَلَى شَهِدْنَا. This is the Quranic record of what happened sometime. But where? When? Why did we say this? You see, the very important aspect of this event was never discussed. This is the actual event that started what is called religion in Islam. And this is why in my translation of Professor al-Attas, Makna Kebahagiaan, the meaning and experience of happiness in Islam, I mentioned this is what it means by the hadith, Awwaluddin Ma'rifatullah. The very beginning of religion is the knowledge about God. This is what it means, you know. So, that experience, according to Junaid, he says here, in the verse, God tells us He spoke to them. At the time, they did not exist. No, we existed, but they did not exist like this. So now we are talking about existence. We exist in a different mode, except insofar as they existed for Him. Bimakna, we don't exist in our physical format. We exist in a form that is known to Allah Ta'ala. This is later on what the Muslim metaphysician, the Ahli Tasawwuf would call the Ayanu Thabita, the Haqa'iq, and the others. You know, later on we can go into detail about it in the next chapter, which is Mahiyah, quality and essence. Their existence is not the same type of existence as is usually attributed to God's creatures. This is a type of existence which only God knows and only He is aware of. God knows their existence, embracing them, sees them in the beginning when they are non-existence and oblivious of their own future existence in this world. In their timeless existence before Him and in their state of unity with Him. See, this is unity, maknanya they are in, because that's the only way to describe. You cannot say they are in the same space, because there's no space at that point. Because like Junaid was saying, it's in a mode of existence that's only known to Allah Ta'ala. So the best way to describe is unity. Again, do not misunderstand, we are saying as if we are God. No, you know, like right now we are in a unit, we are called the unit of Bicara Buku, Dato Zaini Ujang, betul tak? It does not negate that we are different, one from the other. And this is what we are saying. Bala Shahidna, he says, we know each other's differences. So when he called them and they answered quickly, their answer was a gracious and generous gift from Him. From Him. He gave them knowledge of Him when they were concepts which He had conceived. Ma'luman fi ilmillah. So He gave them. This is the meaning of, in this other book of Raniri, فَحَقَّقَ حَقَّهُمْ حَقَّ تَحْقِيقٍ. Bunyi pelik, is very strange. Professor al-Attas explains it. This is what it means by he verifies their true nature of existence. So he gave them the ability to what is called tahqiq. This, at that very moment, is the first instance of our intuition of existence. By virtue of we exclaiming Bala Shahidna, we affirm that He is our Allah SWT, our God. That also, indirectly, we are intuiting our existence. So that's very, my God, it's very powerful. So now you see, our metaphysics is not the normal philosophers' metaphysics. Our metaphysics is right smack based on religion. It's in the Quran. And this is why I remember when I was for students of Cassis, I keep saying, I've met Prof. In the works of Prof. al-Attas, he begins with no uncertain terms, with the affirmation of Islam, the Quran, the Prophet, which is very strange for me, Dato. I came from a tradition which is, not this tradition. But I found it very strange. But he developed an idea which is really, in this way, this is like a ta'wil of this verse. It's not a normal tafsir. Betul tak? A normal tafsir is a different way. So, this is why, look, in the early pages, page 4, he talks about this. And this is why we must again revisit, this when he talks about the concept of religion, foundation of ethics and morality. He brought out this verse too. See? But this context of this verse rarely is being taught in any my experience, I don't hear this in normal ustaz talks about this. Because when you say Yaumul Alastu, normal people would think this is Rumi. And this is mystical. This is another thing. When we talk about tasawwuf, we have fallen into the trap that was unfortunately either by design or just a matter of accident. Because the English language is a very poor language. See, mystic, if you look at the word, is basically coming from the Greek and Latin. And for them, mystic is something that was removed from what is normal at that time. So they were people removed from the tradition and the culture practices of the Greeks of the time who worship many gods and goddesses. So they become a cult. And this is why nowadays, tasawuf ni, when you talk about Sufi, ini cultish. Because our mind has been shaped to... But can you imagine, do you think Ghazali thinks like that? Do you think Junaid thinks like that? I don't think so. They were developing these things as... That is why Prof. al-Attas, and we look further, I'll show you later on. This idea of intuition of existence and the idea of existence is coming from Wahdatul Wujud, the experience of Wahdatul Wujud, the experience of the oneness of existence. Is that exactly Professor al-Attas is trying to point to? Ghazali, and then Junaid even earlier on. Because this is the first instant of intuition of existence here in the Quran. But it doesn't talk about, that this is just by derivative, isn't it? You derive many things. So, on the Ghazali aspect, let me see, you can find the right page. Yeah, it's page 22. And it's derivative from his book Mishkatul Anwar, which is a commentary on Surah An-Nur. It's been translated. It has been translated. I'm not going to read a whole lot because a whole long, lengthy quotation here to see. But just to show to you that, as I read earlier, there is this continuity of ideas.
Well,
yes?
why is this the importance of separation in the first place?
Because if you're completely united, one, at the same level of existence, you become homogeneous. If you are homogeneous, you will not recognize your identity. That's why Professor al-Attas, in another book, I think it was Islam, the Philosophy Science, he said, reality, the nature of reality is difference. Without difference, there'll be no cognizant aspect of understanding of who we are. Look, this is a glass, different from another mug, different from... That's why you cannot have the same... This is why in this idea of intuition of existence, using that verse, he's trying to say that there is this rububiyyah and ubudiyah. You are servant and this is Rabb. And there must be separation. Always, he says, if you read the whole pages and read it slowly, he always reminds you to read his book slowly. At every discussion of this book, although they talk about union, as he said, it's not really a union because you cannot be united, like Iqbal was saying, the finite cannot be united with the infinite. It just doesn't work. Just like, for example, although we are of the same material, or carbon base, you cannot be united with a cow. Cannot be united with a sheep. But when you break it down in your own digestive system, whatever that is, the khasiyah from the meat, you can derive it. So differences is very important to see. In fact, life is so far more interesting when you're different. That's why I said to my students, those who are not yet married, actually you marry a completely different person. Don't talk about, same interests, same this, same that. Doesn't work. Life becomes so boring. You don't want to marry another you. It doesn't work. In fact, they say, opposites attract. Isn't it? Yeah. So.
But banyak dia mention about separation. And then they have another second separation.
Yes, okay, let me explain this. And this is also an experience of modern day scientific empirical experiment. When they introduce to you, I remember, for example, the days when I used to catch a rat in order to do the dissection, right? When we were young, a rat is just a rat. It's not a biological specimen. So the word biological specimen is already a separation in meaning. Previously, it's only a rat. It's part of our plaything, we chase it here and there, and we let our cat chase it. But by the time it becomes a biological specimen, the separation is different now, degree in knowledge. So the same thing he's talking about that. So the first instant of union was that, the day of Alastu, right? The first separation is when we come here. That's why we forgot Allah Ta'ala. The verse says, antakulu something, kunna an hadha ghafilin, that you were negligent. Memang, that's right, that's what happens. We're completely negligent of God when we see this world. Because as Prof. al-Attas was saying, the word dunya comes from the word dana, which means the consciousness has been brought close to our consciousness, this world. So God, which is not seen, of course, he will never be seen, because he's not of the same substance.
Yeah.
It doesn't fall in the degree that can be captured by our sense perception, or for that matter, our metaphysical apparatus to know things.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the second separation is when we become scientists, looking at different,
yes,
different.
yeah. That is at the level of empirical sciences. But at the level of, as I said, remember last time, or no, I was talking to someone else, I'm sorry. Prof. al-Attas mentioned here that two types of experience. The true knowledge is the dhawq. The first level, which is
the true knowledge is
actually dhawq, experiential knowledge.
experiential.
Yeah. I mean, people can describe to you, Dato, the taste of apple strudel. But have you tried it? Like for example, I remember there was one time I was attending, I was accompanying Professor al-Attas for a conference somewhere in Genting Highlands, and some foreigners was asking, how does a durian taste? Oh my God. See, you can say it's creamy, it's sweetish, sometimes it's sourish, but it's nothing like actually tasting it. But the smell is out of this world, It doesn't register. Those are elements of description, but it doesn't bring knowledge. It doesn't bring knowledge.
Taste. Yeah.
It is tasting, the actual tasting.
Doubt.
And this is why this idea of actual tasting in knowledge must be brought back. We do that in physics, meaning you have to do the experiment. Because you really must go through the patience of waiting for your experiment. Dato, when I was studying astronomy, you have to wait at 2 o'clock in the morning to see the whatever planets that you want to observe. You really have to wait, because you cannot say, hey, Mars, come up, man. You cannot quicken it, That's why it's discussed in the Quran, the night cannot catch up with the day, it comes at its own sweet time. So you do actually dhawq. But somehow this discussion, these nomenclatures, these terms have been somehow pushed as if these are religious, and religion doesn't bring true knowledge. It's rubbish. It is actually what they do in science. As I said, as we were discussing last time, they talk about irrational numbers. Actually, those are metaphysical things, because those things are beyond physics, beyond bodies, beyond jism, beyond mass. Yeah. So, what Prof. al-Attas is talking.
What is the terms normally used by Al-Ghazali or other scholars on separation?
Oh, farq.
Farq.
Al-farq. Yeah.
Yeah. Farq.
Yeah, and the discussion Prof. al-Attas is talking about here is fascinating, because of okay, let's look at another thing that he discussed in here, which I think people find it very difficult, because the word often come up in this writing, and for discussions about wahdatul wujud and have you, or tasawwuf. It's about okay, wijdan is the finding of existence, which is intuition of existence. So you find what? You find wujud. So before that, what happened? You lost wujud, right? This idea of fana. And people cannot explain what fana is all about. People think that this is some kind of mumbo jumbo, hocus pocus, some strange cultish idea. No. This is what Prof. al-Attas was trying to bring the case of what happened to Musa alayhi salam. Do you remember, Cik, what page it is?
Musa.
Musa. Because what happens in where's my phone? What happens with the case of Musa is he says, Rabbi arini anzur ilaika. Show me so that I can see you. Let me check if I have it here, Yeah. Sorry?
Just before
the Ghazali, yeah. Because, this idea of separation, that see, has to do with the idea of losing of consciousness. This is the verse. Walamma ja'a Musa limiqatina. Okay. Wa kallamahu rabbuhu. Qala rabbi arini unzur ilaika. O Lord, show thyself to me, that I may look upon thee. Now remember, it's fascinating. Prof. al-Attas uses this kind of verses in the discussion about intuition of existence. It's a metaphysical discussion. So that's why in the Quran, there are fascinating event of our Prophet that actually reinforces the idea of education of a different kind. Unfortunately, we miss it because we looked at it at harfiya level. It's only literal, there's the surface level, superficial. Oh, there's a prophet, he saw the bush, it's nice. But we fail to read the deeper level. And here's the deeper level. Rabbi arini unzur ilaika qala lan, lan. This is even fil mustaqbal, mustahil, lan tarani walakin indur ila al-jabal wa fa in istaqarra makanahu fasawfa tarani. So look at the jabal, look at the mountain. If it remains standing, I need it. If it remains standing. So God says, look at the mountain. If it remains standing, you shall see me. Falamma tajalla. There's a verse in the Quran, tajalla, because a lot of people like to make fun of the Sufi, saying, why they talk about God, descending, coming down. But this is in the Quran. Falamma tajalla rabbuhu lil jabal. God descend to the mountain. Therefore, God does not come down from his arash and sit on the mountain. No, it must be something else. This has not been discussed properly, but this is descriptive, of what happened. Falamma tajalla rabbuhu lil jabal ja'alahu dakka. He made the mountain run asunder into dust.
Pulverized.
This is the losing of your form. The jabal lost its form as a mountain. So there is a moment of, let me say, de-exist. The mountain was existing and Allah Ta'ala decided, take it out of existence. So this is it. So, dakka wa kharra Musa sa'iqa. So Musa, he fell down in a swoon. Kharra sa'iqa, inilah the experience of fana. It's just another word, but the Quran uses a different term. See, he lost consciousness. So what the verse and Prof. al-Attas is trying to say here is this: this is really an experience of a delayed, really slow motion of khalqun jadid. He de-exists Musa. At the same time, he de-exists the mountain. That's why Musa belongs. And here he mentions about, as I said in many my classes at Cassis, we actually have a synchronicity of existence because the Khalq and Jadid, we are renewed at every moment in time. And it doesn't mean every second. Fi kulla yawmin huwa fi sha'n. So yawmni is not the normal understanding of day. It's at every moment. Allah Ta'ala is in activity. And the activity is this Khalq and Jadid. It's recreating anew. As I said last time, even particle physics talks about these things. Particles being renewed. And our body, our physical body, after many weeks or whatever, it's completely new.
The cell.
The cells.
Yeah.
Everything's entirely new. So even delayed at the macro level, this is what happens to Musa. You cannot see the mountain being recreated because at that synchronous time, you You fell into kharra sa'iqa. You know, you fana, the language of the Sufis. The Sufis, why do they use the word fana? Because if they were to use sa'iqan, then people would say, oh, they think they're prophets. Like Musa. They don't use that term because that's appropriate to the prophet. See? They cannot use that term because it's not something that you can, it's not the sunnah, that we should follow. Because here Prophet will say, it is depending upon the quality of the person, his amal, his readiness. Allah Ta'ala then prepared him for something like this. These are the khawas. We discuss about this. Just like, for example, there are some people who are so good in mathematics that I'm not good at, isn't it? So those are the khawas in mathematics. They are the khawas in water chemistry. So these are people who are selected by God to be this. Unfortunately, we regard this as not real. But the Quran talks about it. So, kharra Musa sa'iqa falamma afaqa, qala subhanak tubtu ilayka wa ana awwalul mu'minin. I am among the first to believe. This is what also the verse that Prophet was saying. He didn't say I'm among the first to become Muslim. He believed in Allah Ta'ala because he wants proof, He wants to see God. Just like Ibrahim alayhi salam before that, the moon, the sun, the stars, and whatever, That's what the process of that's actually a scientific thinking. Yeah. So this is fascinating, Dato. I mean, I thought what Prophet al-Attas brought here, I think that dimension is completely oblivious to people reading this book. You don't see the fact he's trying to say. First, intuition existence is true and real for everyone. There are different levels, okay? And it is not something made up because it is there in the experience of the Prophet. One example in particular, Musa. And Musa is a unique character in the history of the Quran. Most of the stories in the Quran is the story of Musa. It's amazing, really, Yeah. So we must learn something about that. We shouldn't just look at it from the historical, him being chased by the Pharaoh, but the other aspects. Because, Dato Sri, we as Muslims, we must look at the event of revelation as something not devoid of educational content. That is what is happening today. That is the secularization of our education. Remember, just agama is complete religion, betul lah? Outside of school, so that people don't think that they're going to school is something ubudiyah. It's not part of ubudiyah. It's part of discipline. And being a good student, not being a good abid, not being a good Muslim, not being a good mu'min. We don't stress upon this. And this is why sometimes I think our compatriots, other people who do not belong to our religion, citizens of this country, they fail to appreciate this. And that is why we must have our dua. It might be too cumbersome for them, but for us, this is almost a must. We begin with Bismillah, Quran, Fatiha, you end with whatever. But they fail to appreciate this. They fail to appreciate this. But the other part that I want to say, this is what Prophet al-Attas is trying to say. Look, this has been completely oblivious and forgotten by, people who make decisions on education. People who thought about education. Because, for example, when you teach about philosophy, what do you teach? Because I've read philosophy. Not entirely, of course, I'm still reading. But when you read, it's more of, like Dr. Ikhwan would say, that it is basically like an intellectual gymnastics, isn't it? Your mind, after some time reading, get very tired. You ask the mutakallimun. When they talk about things, it is in response to the philosophers, the al-falsafa. Therefore, they say it's related to aqidah. But no, what Prophet al-Attas is trying to say here, no, it's not really aqidah. It's really your whole being, isn't it? Your whole being. And this is what is missing today. And this intuition of existence is very important. We must bring it back to the fore so that we can really experience, because what is it that you get as far as existence is concerned? That's actually its knowledge. To see. It is, you see, this is why at the end of the prolegomena to the metaphysics of Islam, Professor al-Attas has to talk about the degrees of existence. Because he said in here, existence is a conscious thing, dynamic and conscious. So then people say, is this different from God? No, because wujud is an aspect of Allah Ta'ala. It's one of his aspect, one of the, because it's mentioned, kullu man alayha fan. That's why the word fana is being used, because وَيَبْقَى وَجْهَهُ ذُو الْجَلَالِ وَالْإِكْرَامِ. Everything on it perishes, and that's why we all fan. So the Sufis is using something which is there. It's not a made-up thing. وَيَبْقَى وَجْهَهُ ذُو الْجَلَالِ وَالْإِكْرَامِ. And what remains? Baqa. The word baqa means it has no beginning, and then it has no ending.
Mm-hmm.
For us, human being, we have a beginning, but in the day of judgment, after that, there's no ending, because that's khalidina fiha. That's why we are called abadi. We don't refer ourselves as baqa. Baqa is to be everlasting with no beginning, and the whole stretch of it is called qidam, translated in English as eternal. It's difficult. That's why English is not very equipped to handle our metaphysical discussion. So our metaphysics is basically aqidah. But we don't put metaphysical discussion as part of aqidah now, because it has been somehow appropriated by philosophy, and since we have been introduced to philosophy by the Western construct of education, metaphysics is not part of our religion. See? That's why to intuition of existence is something very, very alien. Very alien. Ustaz apa ngajar wahdatul wujud ni?
Yeah.
Ini sesat ni. I think at one time pun our Jakim has relegated some of the books by Raniri as haram. No, because different people have different levels of understanding. You cannot give quantum physics to perform 5 students unless they're very advanced.
So Fahad is loss of existence. Faqat. Faqt is loss of existence.
He's jumping now.
No, because you mentioned about this again. It's the description of the last stages of fana.
Yeah.
When the man returned to self-consciousness.
Yeah. Now again, it's good that you bring this point, because the reason why I say you're jumping, again, you see, this story missed us completely, because when we read the story in the Quran, we think it's just a story about Yusuf. A story about the Yusuf and the beaker, the royal beaker, Sawa Malik. That is the idea of faqad. The loss to existence as opposed to fana. Fana is you yourself, but the other faqd is the one that where your existence is being stolen, taken away. This is what Professor al-Attas is trying to explain, the word faqad, because it happens, and he wants to describe what actually is in a very slow motion, using the experience of Benjamin, Yusuf, and the beaker.
So lawan dia ialah existence lah.
Yeah, lawan dia existence. But the thing is, Dato, see, we as created being, we cannot have baqa, because number one, we just cannot sustain it. I give you an example, like this mug, it has a melting point. If you burn it at a certain point, this ceramic will just melt away. The same thing with metal. At a certain point, when you heat it up, it can melt. Mm-hmm. So the same thing. This is why the idea of fana is something like that. When Raniri talks about, and our great ulama, when they discuss about metaphysics, they talks about the different degrees of existence. A simple existence is like this. You see, in order for us to be united, it's either physical, because we are physical. We are limited by our form and function. So you shake your hand. If you don't have your hand, there's another way to become united. You may meet your forehead with your nose, the Maori style. You know, there are many ways to be united in terms of commonality and warmth. Yeah. But this idea of faqat that we talked about is once the tajalli, the existence of a different level descend upon you and it's too overwhelming, you lost. And that is the faqat. That's not fana, it's the faqat, because he takes away from you. And this is what I was trying to say. The beaker was there all along, it's just that it's being hidden. Now that hidden, I don't know where Yusuf hid it. Perhaps he hid in what the Turk called kashkul, you know, in the saddle bag. Yeah, I think it was hidden in a saddle bag. So it's kept away. That is what the Sufis talks about, something's being brought back to ma'doom. The covering of the saddle bag, that is the batin aspect. That's the batin aspect. So it is never lost to existence in a sense, but it is only metaphorical. But the owner of existence take it away. So just like, for example, Yusuf can do that because he was one of the royalty. He was one of the nobility. That's why he can take the beaker with no, he doesn't suffer anything because he's belonged to that realm. It's just that he, you know, made up the thing. Somebody stole this royal beaker. Somebody must punish. Will be punished, you know, for it. Itu dia. Yeah. So the faqat and the fana, these are two different levels of losing to existence. The fana is when ourselves is being melted away, like what happened to Musa. Mm-hmm. What happened to the beaker is you are being hidden away. So this is what Prof. al-Attas is trying to say. In the discussion of the khawas al-khawas, you are blackened in both sides of the face. That's what it is. Blackened meaning because we came from ma'doom, we return to ma'doom. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And at that point, then we realize that really the true, final, what is real is basically Allah Ta'ala. And we can say that this is why the Sufi said the only thing that exists is really existence, because you don't see God. He has a name, Allah. But because our experience is existence, that's why wujud is called al-haq ta'ala, the highest truth. Mm-hmm. Because wujud must be true. If it is not true, then don't talk about it. And this is why the logico-positivist has a problem, whether what we experience as thing outside really actually true and real in our mind. Mm-hmm. Or are they just fictitious imagination? The makings of khayal, you know, the khayal that we talked about last time. That's why they have a problem with that. So we call wujud true because the experience is true, and also irfan ilmi is haq. And that's why another name of Allah Ta'ala is haq ta'ala, you know, the highest truth, the ultimate truth. So these are the things that Prof. al-Attas wants to bring about in this discussion of intuition of existence. And remember, he says one of the example of farqul awal is like when you are engrossed in something, you forgot your other parts of your body. Yeah. You know, and that happens all the time because you're so concentrated. Some people will forget to eat. Some people, you know, working on a problem 3-4 hours. That's because the soul has an immense power over the body. But eventually, because the
soul, there's soul.
Nafs, yeah.
Bukannya emotion.
No, not emotion at all. It's the soul. But the soul is also, not to say that it's contained, but it is associated with our physical body. So the physical body is limited by experience in time and space. So that's why you need your 8 hours sleep. You know, if you don't sleep after some time, your body will, you know, exhibit certain kind of behavior which is not normal. So we need food, we need rest, we need contemplation, and we need, memory loss, nisian.
The dead people are also wujud in different forms.
Yes, because their soul still exists.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't die. In that sense, their physical death, yes. I don't know whether it's here or in another chapter. According to the ulama, there are 3 types of death. See, the physical death, the separation of the body and the soul is that. Okay, but the other death is what the Prophet, they say, what's the verse or the report that says mutu qabla an tamutu, which means before your physical death you must refrain yourself in such a way that your body is dead but your soul is not, because what it means is that to control your physical matters, and to be open to these things. And that is why anybody who works on any serious whatever, because we are talking about a human condition, and before this, Professor al-Attas talks about the nature of man, the psychology, the human soul, isn't it, Ustaz? If you check the chapter, yeah, that's precisely because the nature of the human soul is that it is limited by a certain dimension in the physical form. And this intuition of existence is something that what Professor al-Attas wants to say is that this is actually the duty of man. Because otherwise, you'll be attracted by this world. And that's not what our purpose is, isn't it? Our purpose is actually for the perfection of ourselves. Not, because it's mentioned in the Quran that, life in this world is just, takathurun fil amwal, watafakhurun bainan nas. You compete in what is good amongst you, in amassing wealth, in children, in name, in glory. But that's not what it's all about. Yeah.
Physical death, in second.
The second is what is called mutu qabla an mutu, which means to control your nafs. Your nafsul amara.
Nafsul amara.
To control. That's why Ghazali says, the strongest person is the person who can control his ghadab, which is to control your nafs, actually. Yeah. And now you hear about like intermittent fasting. Yeah, it's controlling your nafs.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
So how are you going to do that? It's really, that's why when we say our religion is complete, it is complete, but because we have been looking at it through somebody else's lenses, which makes our religion become so strange,
The third one, the third death?
The third death is what is called the fana part. The experience of the first and the second separation, that is the fana part. To lose your consciousness, that is the true existence also, because it's mentioned here. An-nasu niyamun idha matu intabahu. People are asleep when they die, they awaken. What is it that they awaken to? They awaken to a different world, alam barzakh, the real world. The same thing with this, Dato. The fana is actually you die, but when you are resuscitated, the baqa aspect, the fana sorry. When you are resuscitated after the fana in the baqa, that becomes you alive. And it's mentioned there that Allah Ta'ala puts in you something. Puts in you. And he mentions this. Let me see if I can find the no.
In page 36, in which the spiritual state is in initial state of fana or self-extinction, in which the one who experiences watched loses individual consciousness of the self. Is that right?
Yes, but there's something more specific that I want to show. I'm sorry, where is this page? Before I get to that, we have physical senses, right? We have also internal senses. Now, at the experience of this kashaf, which is also what is called wijdan, and which is also called shuhud, mushahada, muayana, that is at the level of the qalb, the level of the deeper level of experience. And for those who see this, they are fortunate to be gifted with this level of experience. They see it as if they see it with their own eyes. And Professor al-Attas was saying that because this is a replay, so to speak, replay of Alastu bi Rabbikum, because we have seen Allah Ta'ala at that point, but a different kind of seeing as we acknowledge Him, you see, because otherwise we don't make a blind acceptance. And this is why, again, when it says, referring to a verse in the Quran, "Ma khalaqtul jinna wal insa illa liya'budun," the tafsir of it, illa liya'rifun, so that they may know me. So that ibadah that we are supposed to do, and this Prophet al-Attas talks about in that chapter on Islam, foundation of ethics and morality, the whole idea of ibadah with our tashahhud and whatever is actually a reminder of what actually happened on the day of Alastu. Yeah.
The day of Alastu is when
The gathering of all the sons
soul.
of Adam.
So
Well,
that is after the creation of Adam.
No, that's before the creation of Adam. That's it, Dato Seri.
Itu soalannya, betul. Jadi sebenarnya
Can you give him the mic? Do we have an extra mic? Dato
Yeah,
Seri?
yeah, I have the mic.
soalan yang mengganggu bila baca tajuk ni. Jadi kita diciptakan dengan roh kita semua ni, apakah diciptakan serentak? Kemudian sedikit demi sedikit ikut keadaan didatangkan ke bumi. Pertama, apakah kita semua soul diciptakan serentak oleh Allah? Kemudian datang dari Nabi Adam kemudian dan sebagainya. Kedua, doktor sebut tadi, bila kita mati, yang pertama itu fizikal kita mati, kita masih hidup. Betul. Jadi roh kita masih hidup itu, bila berlaku kiamat, apakah kita dimatikan? Sebab kiamat seperti mematikan semua makhluk.
Ya.
Kan? Yang ketiga, ini boleh dendam sebab bulan lepas datang. Kodok. Doktor sebut tentang kita belajar kan. Proses pembelajaran, kita dapat maklumat, kita faham tu maklumat, kita gembira, kita marah. Mana bahagian yang menerima sebenarnya? Otak kita, hati kita atau roh? Itu soalan.
Yeah.
It's a very long question. It requires another session.
Now, you see, this is exactly a good question. As I said, the context of إِذْ أَخَذَ رَبُّكَ مِنْ بَنِي آدَمَ مِنْ ظُهُورِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّتَهُمْ أَلَسْتُ بِرَبِّكُمْ قَالُوا بَلَى شَهِدْنَا. And as it is by Junaid explained in this book. Unfortunately, this book reprinted by IBT here, the Arabic is taken out. The Arabic is taken out, but you can read the Arabic here. Find the book. But I want to explain to you. This, as Junaid was saying, and I read earlier what Professor al-Attas quoted from that book, is in the manner of existence that is only known to Allah Ta'ala. It's not in the form of ruh, it's not in the form of body. It is only something that known to Allah Ta'ala. So, our ulama of the Tasawwuf tradition says, we are at the level of what is called a'yan. Why a'yan? Because the plural of ayn. Remember in Arabic, ayn means individuals, right? So there are a'yan, plural, many individuals. Thabita means affirm. They are there individually. That's what it is. So it's neither soul nor body. When was Adam? Well, Adam is when Allah Ta'ala says, summa sawaitu, and then وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي. So when I was listening, first time listening to Prophet al-Attas, I thought the body was created first. Because sawaitu وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ ruhi. No, it's the reverse. How can you blow into the spirit into the body? The spirit must be first, the ruh. So where did the ruh come from? It's actually, it is a form of existence because we do not know. Because Allah said in the Quran, يَسْأَلُونَكَ الرُّوحِ قُلِ الرُّوحِ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي. ما هو الأمر؟ كن. When Allah Ta'ala uttered the word kun, that is when the ruh comes into being. Kulli ruh min amri rabbi. It is derivative of the command of God. What did Allah Ta'ala command? Or to whom? To what Allah Ta'ala command? To the a'yan. The a'yan, which the Sufi talks about, a'yanu thabita, which is what is called ma'lumat fi ilmillah. We are known in the knowledge of Allah Ta'ala at that time. See?
Yeah.
And this is what is called the arash, because the arash is known as lawh mahfuz. Lawh mahfuz is what Ibn Arabi later on says, it's like an empty thing, and then he says, kunna hurufan lam nuqal. We are words, letters, kunna hurufan aliyatin lam nuqal. We are lofty letters yet unwritten. That's what it is. When was it written? Because qada and qadar is the written part, isn't it? So kun fayakun, itu dia. So Allah Ta'ala, the word kun actually is be, and that's why the word be means the gifting of existence. So the ruh is actually blown into man, is actually existence being gifted to man. And that is why it's called ruh, because it's not, Allah Ta'ala kata, min ruhi. It's not him. It is something from him. So it's not him. And that is why it is wrong to think that, oh, we are divine. That's not what we are saying. So it is neither body nor the soul. Was it created at all time? This is the ayan. Allah Ta'ala created everything. Everything. It's not, but in this case, it's just referring to Bani Adam, the progeny of Adam, because it will have a finite existence. They will come to an end eventually. That's one. Number two, what happens in Jannah after we die, on the day of judgment, right? Yeah. Recreation happens twice. I forgot the verse. Because Allah Ta'ala mentions, we make them die, and then we resuscitate them, and then we make them die again, and then we resuscitate them again. I forgot that verse. I remember that verse very well. See? So that's when the day of judgment, everybody is so-called brought into the death mode, so to speak. But remember, the souls, they don't die. They're already in Alam Barzakh. But they're made to experience again. Just like, for example, during the day of judgment, when you have to suffer, Allah Ta'ala recreate again your skin. You are recreated as you were, not in a different skin. No, it's yes, you were. Because as you were, you will be resurrected. That is the idea of what Prof. al-Attas was saying. In court, the idea of habeas corpus, we must have the body, is that. You must have the body in the day of judgment. So you will be raised on the day of judgment the same way you die, whatever form that is, But when you are being brought to your final end, say you are going to heaven, you're not in that format. You're in a different format. Allah Ta'ala knows. That's why in heaven you can have whatever, but without feeling full, because you're in a form of entirely different,
So we are not the same face.
Allahu alam, because I think.
So how can we know you?
That may be a possibility. You still know your as they say, your family, but of a different format, meaning because we still savor the earthly things, but the nature of it, that we are not limited, bounded by our physical condition. And the other question is, what happened? Where does it go? Thank you. Remember, there are 4 realities in the body. There are many more names. We have nafs, we have ruh. I said that as a ground zero of man, ruh. Then you have qalb, and then you have aql, and then you have nafs. The nafs is the one that is closest to our experience with the physical world. The nafs gather mahsusat. Remember we talked about it, and that's why we need to revisit Nature of Man, Psychology of the Human Soul, let us see. And he mentions here, what we gather, that's a good question, Ustaz. I think I got it here. In fact, I wanted to talk about it. Yeah, yes. At the level of ordinary reason and experience, the known, which we gather. Oh yeah, sorry, page 8. Refers to the meaning of things. We get knowledge. Actually, we get meanings. That's why Prof. al-Attas says knowledge is actually a network of meanings. And thinking is the movement of the soul from meaning to meaning. That's why thinking is always good, reading is always good. The more difficult the book, the better. Because you're pushing your soul to become better, you know. But sometimes you do need the light side of it, you know. Like for example, I read Calvin and Hobbes, you know, Spider-Man, the cartoon, just to relax. Because you need to, the mind is like a muscle. You refer to the meaning of things, the known, and not the things in themselves. So the union, if we were to apply that, it's not the union of the material object with my soul. You cannot knock this mug into my head. Come on, you know, be united. No, it's the meaning of this. So it's the perception of the intelligible form. Where do the intelligible forms go? It's being held by the faculties in the soul, the nafs. The faculties al-quwwah in the nafs. They have first al-his al-mushtarak, the common sense. And then they have the hafidha. The hafidha is the retention. And dhakira, retention and memory, you know. Retain, dhakira, to recollect. You retain saja, not recollect, it's no good. Useless. Okay? So hafidha, it has both function. It has to both retain and recollect. And then it has khayal. Why? Because it needs to entertain that. What is it? So it has a shape of a cat. It has a shape of a banana. So it makes khayal, imagination of it. And this is why later on, remember we talked last time, imagination is very important. But then how do you estimate things? So you need wahmiyah. You need estimative. That's why sometimes it's good to talk to youngs, you know, how do you solve this problem? You know, you challenge them, isn't it? So the mind start to think. See, this is why Dato say the works of Prof. al-Attas is very instrumental for people who are dealing with education, you know. But it needs to be discussed again and again and again, you know. And so this is kept, the forms, the meaning is kept at dhakira. It's in the soul, yani the nafs, because it's connected with the mahsusat. Now, eventually when you have lots of meaning being collected, where do they go? They don't go to the intellect. This is what people are missing. Because the intellect, and this is what Prof. al-Attas is so much, when I read him, unbelievable. The 4 qualities, the 4 aspects of the intellect, he calls them intelligential capacity. This is the rationality part, which is to make judgment, to make clarification, to make distinction, and to make discrimination. And this is what we teach the intellect, really. How do you solve this problem? I use this. That's the intellect.
Empat tadi apa?
Judgment, clarification, distinction, discrimination.
Judgment, clarification.
Distinction and discrimination. This is why it's called rationalism, rationality. Why? Because in trying to make discrimination, you ration things. You ration things into small pieces. And the word rationality is actually thinking in small bits of things. Otherwise it wouldn't work. That's the work of the intellect.
Because sebab tu silibus dalam sekolah-sekolah dia perlu merangkum ni semua. Dia tak boleh hafazan semata-mata.
Exactly. Precisely.
Sebab tu dia dapat pelajar yang menghafal Quran dapat baru ni, nak ajar berfikir, very hard.
No, you're right. We have to teach them. We have to teach them to think. Yeah. Yeah. It's because thinking is that, using that capacity to make judgment, to make clarification, to make distinction. Why? If you look at what Prof. al-Attas mentioned, I put that in al-Attas psychology, it is to arrive at meaning. Because we, human beings, can only entertain limited things. We cannot entertain like, you know, baqa, kulliyat. We don't entertain generalities or universals. We must talk about juz'iyat, particularity. I want to talk to Joe Fitri. I cannot talk to human being.
Yang berhormat, senator.
I cannot talk to human being. What, you think you're God? See? Yeah, you're right. It's a very good question. So, Now, then that's the intellect. But where's the qalb? And that's the thing. That is missing. That's why here, the qalb part is missing in our education, because that's where we receive, remember Prophet's definition of knowledge? It's the arrival of meaning in the soul. Arrival of meaning in the soul, meaning God, gift in the soul, meaning where Allah Ta'ala puts it? Not the intellect, because once it goes to the intellect, it starts judging, discriminating. This is why wahyu goes to the qalb. It doesn't go to the intellect. If it goes to the intellect, then like Prophet al-Attas defined what wahyu is without the subjective imagination of the Prophet. The akal does that. It will do the imagination, the estimation, the khayal. It goes to the qalb, because the qalb receives ma'na. The highest is wahi. It receives lata'if. It receives asral. It receives intuition of existence. That's the qalb, the experience.
Tapi yang selalu berubah-ubah tu apa? Change all the ya muqallibal qulub sabil qalbi ala dinik.
Yeah, it's because the qalb, that refers to the qalb that is too attached with the intellect. Because the intellect is doing that judgment. Sebab itu the qalb la yafqahuna biha. Lahum qulubun la yafqahuna biha. See, because that qalb is disjointed with the intellect. Completely disjointed with the intellect. You cannot do that. That's why no matter how much but you must have the intellect also. You have the intellect, you have the qalb also. You have the intellect, you have to have the nafs also. That's the nature of our existence.
So kalau kita buat purification,
Yes.
katalah kita nak buat apa ni?
Tazkiyatun nafs.
I mean the whole kalau overhaul our
System of education.
No, overhaul ourselves.
Ourselves, good
Okay.
point.
So what is to be overhauled? Intellect. How can we overhaul our intellect?
You overhaul, this is why the title is correct as far as the experience of our ulama. They call it Tazkiyatun Nafs, the purification of the soul. Why? Because nafs is the closest connection to the dunya, the dana, that brought to your external
Tazkiyatun nafs.
Tazkiyatun nafs.
So
But how do
tazkiyatun
you
nafs
do it?
can overhaul everything.
Yes. But how do you do it? Now, the emphasis on just the amal wouldn't work. It wouldn't work because you are emphasizing the amalul bil jawarih. Tazkiyatun nafs begins with the light of guidance, yani light of hidayah. The hidayah comes from qalb. Betul? This is what Ghazali talks about, the al-arifun, the mishkatul anwar. You must read that part again. Read that part again. So you must reinforce while you're doing tazkiyatun nafs bil jawarih, which normally they do it with salah, with siyam, with whatever, they think that they need to do more ibadah. But if you can do more ibadah, tapi if your head is full of shirk ideas, it doesn't work, isn't it?
So, tazkiyatun nafs, concentrating on nafs, but how can it relate to intellect and
I'll give you an example, Dato. Somebody who go to Hajj all the time, thinking that, but in his head, full of shirk ideas about God. There are, I mean, there are some people, I know friends who are, well, they say, they met people who are already 80 years old, but still have a very strange idea about Allah. Because the person, not to say confess, but, they talk. So when talking, that, mashallah, this man has gone so many to Hajj. But so that's not really tazkiyatun nafs. He may collect the amal, but his conception of Allah Ta'ala, perhaps, perchance, his amal may outweigh that, but I don't know. Because Allah Ta'ala says, He doesn't forgive the mushrikeen. Shirik is in the head, not in the amal. Remember, shirik is an intellectual sin.
Seri is intellectual sin, eh?
Yeah.
Itu saya sebut pendidikan ialah akidah.
Betul.
Kan?
That's correct. Yeah.
Jadi yang doktor sebut tadi tu sebab dia belajar sains semua ikut sekolah. Jadi dia beriman, dia solat, dia ni semua, tapi dia mesti percaya bahawa evolution tu betul.
Yeah.
Saya ingat itu. Masih percaya bahawa alam ini diciptakan berdasarkan Stephen Hawking,
Yeah.
kebetulan sebagainya.
Yeah,
Itu
that's what happens.
syirik dan pendidikan.
I know. I give an example. I think we are not going to say anything, but some people will say, kenapa solat? It doesn't bring any benefit. Penat aja. Betul. Pukul 3 pagi bangun buat apa? Because there's no physical benefit from it, except that they lost time as measured by the watch. Time for sleep. So tazkiyatun nafs. That's why education is the bringing up the self of the person. Betul tak? And this part is very important. We must somehow make it in such a way that it's a symbiosis. We now call it religious and non-religious, but it's unfortunate. That's what I say.
So tazkiratul nafs ni walaupun we have 4 components, by attacking only nafs,
Yeah.
and then it will improve the rest.
No, you cannot. As I said, it must work together with the input for the qalb. The qalb is the higher consciousness about God. See, that's why you need further understanding. Prof. al-Attas was saying, fardu ain goes all the way until, yang dikatakan utlubu ilma minal mahdi ila lahdi is fardu ain, not fardu kifayah. Takkan lepas jadi doktor nak dia apa pula? Jadi lawyer nak dia apa? No. You just do your fardu kifayah, one thing, but the fardu ain we forgot. The fardu ain minal mahdi ila lahdi, that's not being taught now. That we forgot, saya pergi surau, what's happening? Oh, ada ustaz syarah kitab zakat. No, the fardu aini is not the zakat part dah. It's your understanding about Allah Ta'ala. Because you keep on doing zakat. Zakat is just a transactional thing. Macam one time I was in Penang many years ago. It's near the factory, and this ustaz was talking about zakat unta. I was wondering, ايش هذا يعني? Siapa yang nak bagi zakat unta dekat sini? So mismatch of education. So people get very bored.
Buku ni kitab kita kena baca. Tidak tak khatam.
No, but Dato say this is what I hope people can get it now. You see, the dimension of this discussion is not metaphysical per se, because we have been confined to the idea that intuition is ontology, to use the philosophical metaphysical term, and ontology is ruhaha. Oh, I'm among the high metaphysicians that talk about this. No, that's what Prof. al-Attas begins with. Yawmu alastu. Where do you marry this? How do you develop this? Because that is the first instant of intuition of existence. 1. 2, that's also the idea of separation, because you need to be separated from God, otherwise that's what they blame the Sufis as if we talk about, we are with God. No, at every moment when you read this again, Prof. al-Attas keep on saying there's always a separation. There's a separation. And that's why Prof. al-Attas also disagree. I do not want to go into detail why wahdatul wujud is not wahdatul syuhud. But that's a different matter. It's going to be in the footnote of my translation later on, inshallah. But this,
again, yang intuition ni is without conscious reasoning ataupun
it's without conscious reasoning. You're not using your intellect. See, the intuition of existence is what Allah Ta'ala gifted to the person. It's a gift. But how do
kita boleh terjemah kesedaran kan bahasa Melayu? Kesedaran.
Kesedaran ni, it's not consciousness, it's intuition. It's a different matter, I give you an example. Yes.
Arabic.
That's why I said the translation is wijdan.
Ada mudah sikit.
No.
Malay.
Malay term is wijdan.
Istilah.
Yeah, istilah dia. We have to go back, because the experience is both religious and also scientific in nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Prof ada yang menggunakan awakening ataupun yaqazah je.
Sorry.
Menggunakan awakening ataupun yaqazah.
Okay, thank you. Because the yaqazah tu, that's a good point. Remember I mentioned the saying that an-nasu niyamun idza matu intabahu. That intabahu is also a moment of yaqazah. But they don't use the word yaqadha in this context. They use the word wisdom. It's because yaqadha is to assume you are unconscious. Like, for example, a good example The term yaqadha is being used particularly by the philosophers. They like to use that term, you know. Although it is being appropriated by some group, so-called Sufis, but they don't use that term properly. They use the term yaqadha means to see something in a state of consciousness. Like, for example, seeing the Prophet yaqadha, you know. Seeing the Prophet as if he is present. Hai bin Yaqdan, for example. Hai bin Yaqdan is a philosophical romance, you know, written by Ibn Tufayl. The reason he wrote that is precisely to talk about how the intellect has arrived at a higher level to come to a realization that the highest of all is God. But he doesn't talk about existence. He doesn't talk about existence. So the arrival at something called the higher consciousness of God, that is for the philosophers, is the yaqadha, you know. Intuition of existence doesn't mean that it is a moment of yaqadha. To be sure. But anyways, since the question is mentioned, this is called Fath Rabbani, an opening, a divine opening. Who is it that wrote that book? Fath Rabbani. Qadir Jilani. He has a book, Fath Rabbani, an opening, a divine opening. The word Fath Rabbani is actually the event of Yawmul Alasti, and it's not yaqadha, because you see, at that moment of existence, that mentioned by Junaid, we are not in a stupor, we are not asleep. We are yet in a condition that we have existed, but in a form only known to Allah Ta'ala. And the reason why we answered him, Qalu bala shahidna, Prophet was saying that we were given the ability of nutq, of speech, but without the tongue. So it's a different way of how do you say, you know, existing entirely. So when we talk about yaqadha, the qalb, the qalb is never asleep. I've been saying this all the time. It's just like the soul. The soul never sleeps. We just negligent.
Yang tidur tu intelek.
No, none of them were asleep.
Dah apa yang tidur? So
Exactly. That was your brain never go to sleep, isn't it? They say that it's REM, but it's still working. They call it brain activity.
Yeah,
Your brain never sleep, really.
Yeah.
But just a deeper mode. It slows down, but it never really sleep. They call it REM sleep or whatever. No, it's just a manner of speaking, but the brain doesn't pause to keep the heart beating. Because the heart beating, it doesn't beat on its own. It beats because of the signal from the brain. The stomach, you know, it stops because the signal from the brain says no, stop after certain seconds. So this is fascinating, you know. So this yaqadha, it is because at that moment it's an opening. The opening is Fath Rabbani. The word being used Rabbani because at that time, at that particular moment of experience, it's not ilah. Ilah is when you are performing ibadat. You see? That's why what's her name? Jilani says it is Fath Rabbani. Now, Fath Rabbani is actually what the Sufis talked about, Kashaf. Kashaf is what the philosophers say, yaqadha. Suddenly they realize something. No, it's Kashaf. Kashaf is the unveiling. The unveiling means to take away the hijab, the veil. What is that veil? The first veil is this world. The second veil is our own ego, what is called subjective consciousness. And that is why I was going to say, I'm not going to talk about it. This is why the Sufis disagree with the wahdatu shuhud. Wahdatu shuhud means you have your ego, but that's a different matter of discussion. I don't want to go into that really. So you have Fath Rabbani, that is Kasha, which is Wija, and at that moment, it's called al-waqt, the proper waqt, the proper time, from the metaphysical aspect of tasawwuf. It's the proper time because you actually alastu bi rabbikum, you actually intuit your existence. That's true time. That is the true moment. Therefore, the person who experiences it, he is called Sahibul Zaman.
So
The possessor of a period. Because that period can be lengthened or shortened depending on the quality of the person, depending on the gift of Allah Ta'ala. You read this, the narratives about certain ulama that they have a long experience of what is called sukur, intoxication. You know.
Saya ada forward ni. While speaking to you, I asked my artificial intelligence friend to
Good.
find. So I shared with someone here in the group.
Okay.
The difference between Descartes and the rest.
Okay. Cogito is at the level of the akal.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. No count. It doesn't work. Personal evidence is at the level of empirical part. The nafs dealing with the world, external world. That's why bodily presence.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why I remember, I keep on saying, give an example. As I said, I forgot which. Either it's David Hume or David Burke. I read many years ago when I was an undergraduate. He was saying that, if we are just atoms and molecules, why is it that when I'm playing chess with you, I can sense your presence? Technically speaking, a chair would not be talking to the table.
Yeah.
But if we're just molecules and atoms. So this is what, the evidence is all about, bodily presence. Now the hermeneutics is just this about the akal part, trying to make interpretation of things. Heidegger, using this to say that, because the word hermeneutics is used now in basically literary studies to make interpretation of text, and they're using it even to the tafsir of the Quran. So Heidegger, existence as meaningful, culturally situated being in the world. That's what we are talking about. Tapi he talks about it being here because he doesn't believe in metaphysical part. This is why, if you want to read more about Heidegger, read Aparsala's book, Being and Existence, between Mullah Sadra and Heidegger.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fascinating book. It's done under supervision of Fazlur Rahman. You want to understand that more.
Yeah.
You can ask him when he came.
Dia ada masukkan al-Attas tu yang interesting.
The Attas is spiritual realization of the reality through the soul. Well, it's okay because spiritual means it has to do with the nafs. Okay, because we say spirit, it has to do with the ruh, the nafs, the aqal, and then realization is the word in Arabic tahqiq. Remember, none of these earlier ones that I say, none of them use the word realization. Because it's either what is called physical, not realization, but then just physical experience, which is the evidence part of herself.
Yep.
And then cogito, I'm thinking.
I think that I am.
In fact, if you read discourse, what is it?
Discourse on methods.
Discourse on methods, is it, or critique of pure reason?
Oh, Kant.
Kant. No, I mean Descartes. Discourse on methods.
Meditations.
Because he said, if I'm not thinking, either I'm dreaming. And that cannot be.
Dream is not exist lah.
No, dream is no reality.
Oh, no really.
That's the crux of the thing that they want to grapple with.
Berangan pun bukan real.
Oh no, perangai bukan reality.
Yeah.
That's their problem. You see.
Banyak tak boleh buat lah.
So the word realization is very important, which is we in the Islamic tradition we use the word tahaqqaqa, which is the root word is haqq, which is also in why we say experiential part is more important than just theoretical understanding, because the 3 degrees of certainty, ilmul yaqin, ainul yaqin, haqqul yaqin. Haqqul yaqin is the highest, and that's the realization, because the word tahqiq, fahaqqaqa haqqahum haqqal tahqiq. That's been drummed all the time. So it's both the experience, which, to put it in simple term, dhauk. Tapi sekarang ni dhauk, makan durian, dhauk.
Taste.
Taste.
So, but experiential things is very important. Sekarang ni kita pun dekat. So I'm so sorry. Speak in English. MQA in particular, Malaysia Qualification Agency, recognize the importance of prior experiential learning.
Yes.
Because then people are talking about experiential. what is important is not the learning process,
Yeah.
but what you experience, what is the outcome of learning. So therefore we have appel, accreditation of prior experiential learning. There are many scholars, say, for example, they have no qualification. I just give an example. Dr. Suzuki, he is the very famous Japanese scholar on Japanese culture, but he has no basic formal education throughout. But he wrote, if you want to read Japanese culture, I mean, you have to read Suzuki. So, university, I forgot which university in the US, Princeton or something, awarded him with experiential learning kind of things, and give him doctorate. And it was in 1935.
Wow.
Yeah, tengok dia punya work and whatnot, very, very authentic and very deep in understanding, because he experienced himself when he speak about, I mean, subjects related to the culture. So I think this is very interesting because Professor al-Attas mentioned many times about the experience of happiness.
Yes, experience.
Experience of happiness. Kalau tidak kata macam mana nak happy. So when I was in Denmark recently, the happiest country in the world, I was there. I put in my Facebook posting, I'm happiest today. I'm happiest man today. I'm in Denmark. Tengok orang. To be in Denmark is not easy and not fun, you know. Number one, that the weather is extreme. Second, everything is so expensive, and no taste as well. Semua benda sama. No spicy kind of thing, and so at the end of the day, this is happiness. So that's it. So they are satisfied with what they have, and that's the reason why they consider themselves happiest in the world.
For example, this morning when I asked Luqman to find me a PDF version of Islam and Modernity, the reason being because I want to check exactly what page Fazlur Rahman mentioned that there is a need of or this in the modern age, Islamic metaphysics is much one thing. And I remember I read it, and it's before the final chapter. I looked at it, and betul, it's page 132, I think. And the reason I remember that because Prof. al-Attas borrowed a copy, my copy of Islam Modernity, to look at that part. So I text back to Luqman, I'm very happy today because my mind is still in good form. I can remember exactly the page of where this quotation is. That's experience. That's not theoretical. That's the thing, and I think a lot even the young ones, if they study, you make element of discovering something. That's happy for them, isn't it? Yeah. And even for ourselves, the discovery of an understanding of a meaning, which is difficult, it's a happy moment.
Yeah.
Seriously. Yeah.
Any question? We have another 10 minutes, so please. Yeah.
Assalamualaikum. Sorry. I just want to share that, after 32 years of being involved with education, I feel like I'm off track after 32 years, because there are so many things that, we harp on during our discussion about, focusing on the qalb, not too much on the intellectual. I think until now we are still focusing too much on the intellect. So where is the akhlaq? Where is the adab? So, sometimes it's very frustrating. I mean, considering the state that we are currently in, where we reprimand our students for not having the particular adab of good behavior, but then we are reprimanded. Our names will be sent to CISPA. It's so frustrating. Sila Dato' Seri.
CISPA tu apa?
Pengaduan awam.
Pengaduan awam.
Oh.
And it's broadcasted.
Yes. Exactly.
Assalamualaikum, Prof.
mengenai tazkiyatun nafs, kan nafsu ada stage dia kan, amarah,
Sorry,
lawamah.
sorry, Dato, repeat it please.
Mengenai tazkiyatun nafs,
Tazkiyatun nafs.
okey, kan dalam nafsu kan dia ada tingkat-tingkat dia.
Ya, ya.
Okey, amarah, lawamah, mutmainnah,
Ya.
sampai stage yang ketujuh. Tapi yang tiga yang dominan yang kita kena ni lah. Jadi dalam tazkiyatun nafs, adakah kita membersihkan ke ataupun kita daripada amarah kita ke lawamah ke mutmainnah?
Thank you for you bringing that back. But I failed to answer Dato Sri in the beginning. What do we mean by tazkiyatun nafs? It gives you a wrong impression as if you are purifying the soul. Actually, you're not purifying the soul. This is where the tarbiyah comes in. The ta'lim is the akal part. See, Prof doesn't like this term ta'lim sangat. You know, he likes the idea of ta'dib, because ta'dib has both aspects of ta'lim and tarbiyah. See, the tarbiyah normally is looked at disciplining the person, the physical part. And then the ta'lim is trying to infuse what is called theoretical knowledge, isn't it? And that's dealing with basically the akal part. Where do you do the tarbiyah? That is where we are missing now, because we think that tarbiyah is the physical disciplining, but not actually the maintenance of the soul. That is the part. The maintenance of the soul goes through what you may say, you know, lawama and the mutmainnah, because this degree of ascension from nafsul amara to bisu, that we all know. I mean, we learn we are in that condition because we are always on the thin line or thin ice that we can just drop to the lower aspect of person for that matter. We think that the tazkiyatun nafs begin with lawama, not actually. You must maintain your nafsul mutmainnah. That's actually the tarbiyah part. The tarbiyah part is the mutmainnah, not trying to show you in the middle. No. When your soul is in a tranquil state, you are not perturbed by anything. It's not when you are in the middle that you have to go here and... no, then you're busy. That's why the tazkiyatun nafs really is the maintenance of the mutmainnah. That's the part that's been missing, because we've been telling people as if mutmainnah is difficult to get. No. Where do you get mutmainnah? You get it in salah. It's momentary. Itmi'nan. It's momentary, but it's enough for you to rest a bit. And that's what nafsul mutmainnah is all about. It's not all the time static in like a comatose state. Ooh, I'm in mutmainnah. No, not that. Because the nafs, the intellect, they're all active. You cannot comatose it. You cannot turn it into a zombie. That's what tarbiyatun nafs is all about. It's not about turning it into a zombie. It is maintaining a certain activity which is directed to what is called fadilah, the virtues. The virtues. That is what we don't talk about that even, Education is about the perfection of man insofar as him being instilled and him living up to the virtues. And that can only exude coming out from nafsul mutmainnah, a real tranquil soul. Because you look at the Prophet, anytime he's most patient of many things. And that's why it's difficult for us to experience that. Betul tak?
Is it kalau macam
Okay.
because every second kita berdepan dengan takdir.
Is it?
Every second kita berdepan dengan takdir.
Ya.
Maknanya semua dah ditakdirkan.
Ya.
Dekat sini pun dah ditakdirkan. So takdir tu apabila kita melihat pada takdir, ada setengah orang kata berdamai dengan takdir. Maknanya dia berperang dengan takdir, kemudian baru dia berdamai. Ada orang di stage reda dengan takdir. Maknanya dia masih ada nak kehendak, tapi dia terpaksa reda. Tapi ada orang ikhlas. Maknanya dia tak ada kehendak lagi, tapi dia terima aja takdir. Adakah itu mengenai nafsu mutmainnah?
Oh yeah. Is it? Yes. This is where meanings very important. See, Because the nature of when we understand something, you are right, that things we are at every moment in our takdir. We are at every moment. Inna kulla shay'in khalaqnahu biqadarin. At every moment, we are in our own set dimensions of Allah Ta'ala. So you cannot say, I'm trying to fight against my takdir. No, you're not. Because it is entirely beyond you. So what you might say, okay, something unfortunate happened. You become unhappy. Yeah, unhappy is a state of the soul. The Prophet never complained any of his son died. He experiences sadness, but he doesn't fight takdir. See, this is why we must keep on talking about this thing. That's redefining meanings. Yeah? As if, because some of these concepts, we got it from, I think, foreign ideas. And this is very, very wrong. We must reshape again these things. And we must teach them from young. See? Even now, sorry to say, but if you look at some approaches in modern psychology, behavior, they're coming to terms with these things. To say, for example, okay, now the idea of autistic student, people who are autistic, you don't fight against them, you don't push them, but you turn slowly to accommodating them. Because now you are accommodating takdir, betul tak? But if you put on the same criteria, it's like what they say, you ask a monkey to high jump, it doesn't work. You cannot ask autistic person to be examined by normal standards. And that's why it's difficult. But when I started to be close to Prof. Al-Attas, I was wondering why he said, the best among the best measurement of education is using the hadith of the Prophet about the munafiq, the three qualities of the munafiq. When he speaks, he lies. When he makes promises, he breaks them. And when he's given the amana, he broke his amana. It's because of the virtues. You put the person, a munafiq, in any level of the government, your government will break down, isn't it? So it's not his degree, Dato. Seri.
Yeah.
It's not his degree. He may have a PhD from Oxford, Cambridge, from Azhar, but if he is just completely, a liar, a person who's untrustworthy, and he breaks his promises, it doesn't. So we must teach this at a very young age, Even at the old age, we must keep on reminding ourselves to, we must revisit this thing. So, but that's a good question, because tazkiyatun nafs, as I said, it doesn't work with only amal ibadah. It will not work, because the inside is so corrupted. It's so corrupted. The person may go to Hajj every year, go with the most expensive, most expensive plan. But
package,
package. But inside is completely shirik in his mind.
So,
Prof,
last.
yes, one short question, if I can invite. As coined by Ibn Sina in As-Siyasah about tadbirul nafs, tadbirul manzil, tadbirul daulah kan. How best that we are as a person to be moderating, managing while struggling with self, and then we are also to administer self, and then manzil, and then daulah, and then having the background of what we have learned today.
That's a good question. And this is why our ulama, Ghazali, Ibn Sina and all others, they talk about the virtues. The four cardinal virtues, which Prof. Al-Attas talks about, nature, man, psychology, the human soul. You have to have wisdom, you have to have courage, you have to have temperance, and then lastly, justice. These are the cornerstone in any level. You have to do justice to yourself. You have to have wisdom to yourself, isn't it? You have to control yourself. That's being temperance, ifa, And with the family, it's the same thing, I keep on telling, for example, my wife, not trying to appease or whatever. I say, you look at the story of Yaqub. Is it Yaqub with Yusuf? Yaqub, isn't it? He's a prophet, When the siblings of Yusuf say, let us play with Yusuf. You take him. We'll guard him. The father knows. He knows, But he just let takdir takes effect. He has to be patient with it. He was so patient that he lost his eyesight. See? Was he unjust? No. He is just to his condition. The same with Ayub. To the point he was complaining, you know, about his condition. So this is the thing. This is what I'm trying to impress upon you. What Prof. al-Attas is trying to do also. We must take the events of what happened to prophets in the Quran, bring it into context, and we don't make that into just completely like a very
history.
Just history, you know. That's why I remember many years ago, Dato, when I was asked to become the someone to look at the curriculum of the pondok in Terengganu. I asked them a simple question: what history do you teach? Sejarah apa yang diajar? We just teach Qisasul Anbiya. No sejarah Melayu, no sejarah Islam di alam Melayu, nothing. No sejarah dunia, world history. So you cannot intellectualize with the coming of Islam to this part of the world. So your religious knowledge becomes secular. Secular means completely separated from the life of this world.
Yeah,
It's
the reality.
unfortunate.
We say
Yeah.
the schoolism of Islamic study.
Yeah, the secularism of religion. That's what happens now. Religion, you put in the corner for religion. That is wrong. And that's just why a lot of our, I'm sorry to say, our traditional ulama don't look at, don't fight for Jawi, the script. They don't become good writers because their language is bad. Malay language, the Jawi language, they don't become expositors, you know. They don't talk about it. It's very bad.
Okay, we have to stop here. Otherwise, it will be extended to 7 o'clock. So, again, according to what I discovered from these two sessions, it's very important for us to go deep into these very important topics for discussion. Despite, I think, I must get this book 25 years ago. Yeah. When I reread the books, I find it second separation.
Yeah. Truly, yeah.
So I'm now a biologist after a red instead of just first separation. So I think this is very important. Next session will be in January 24th. Yeah. January 24th. I just want to make sure that we put in our diary, January 24th. The same time, inshallah. We have to discuss about Ramadan because Ramadan will be 21st of February. Whether we want to have it and then followed by breakfast together, something like that. Later, but we can discuss about that later. Yeah. So with this, I thank Professor Zainiy for this session.
Thank you, Dato. Really.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the discussion today. I'm a second separation man. So, yeah. So you met your wife first time, first separation, and now second separation.
Yeah, betul. Yeah.
So we know you better. We treat you professionally.
Inshallah.
In different way. So this is very important for us to understand because the first time I read, what is separation? What is separation?
Yeah.
And so important, Professor Attas keep on saying separation.
Yes.
And then second separation. It means that we are no longer there. We are a new kind of existence.
Yeah.
Understanding that differently, and this is very important. I thank everyone, especially those who are following us on the through internet, including Brother Shukri is not here with us today, and Dr. Hilmi is not here as well, but he's following. He texts me that they are following. Thank you, and we see you again. May Allah give barakah to our gathering today.
Amen.
And inshallah 2026 will be inshallah better for us. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.